Yo, what's up guys? We're back for another UFC breakdown and predictions video. This week it's for UFC Vegas 71, and we're coming off another good week last week for the predictions and bets for UFC 285. That was an awesome event. I tried to warn you guys, man. We got to see the return of the GOAT. Jon Jones came back and completely obliterated Ciryl Gane. I posted a video months ago about that fight saying I thought Jon Jones was going to dominate him, and said it again on my prediction video, and that's exactly what happened. But yeah, man, really excited to see what happens with the heavyweight division going forward, but we're going to be moving on to this card, UFC Vegas 71, and you guys have been doing really good on the likes lately. We got over 150 likes last video. Let's try to do that again. That's going to be the goal, so hit that like button for sure, man. It really helps with the algorithm and everything like that, so make sure if you're watching and you're listening right now, hit the like button. And outside of that, there's a lot of stuff going on this week. We got Bellator, we got Aries FC on Thursday, we got LFA, we got PFL. So if you want to get access to those predictions and the bets that I have for this UFC card and those promotions as well, you know where to find it. Patreon.com/MAPredictionGuru. You're going to have access to some of the best betting tips in the world there, top 10 in the world. So make sure to check that out. Patreon.com/MAPredictionGuru. We've been killing it this year so far. We've won 7 out of the first 8 UFC events, I believe is what it is. So we're going to try to keep that going on this event, and definitely would welcome anyone that wants to come join the party over there on the Patreon. But let's get into this first fight of the night here. It's a short notice matchup. Carlston Harris taking on Jared Gooden. And, you know, I don't have a huge opinion on this fight. I'm a fan of Carlston Harris' style. I think he's fun to watch. He goes out there and he goes for the finish, and so is Jared Gooden. But Carlston Harris hasn't fought in a long time. If you remember, his last fight was last February. He took on Shavkat Rakhmonov, which is not an easy task, and he got knocked out in the first round in that fight with that spinning back kick. And 35 years old, coming back over a year layoff. It's hard to know 100% how he's going to fare, but his first 2 UFC fights, he got 2 first-round finishes, and definitely when he's on, he could be very dangerous. But Jared Gooden, coming back to the UFC here, he's getting this fight on less than a week's notice. Harris was supposed to fight Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov was forced to pull out. Gooden used to be in the UFC, got cut, and went 4-1, and now he's coming back here for a second stint. And we're going to see if he's able to come in here and get the upset on short notice. I don't think there's an odds out yet, but I'm sure Gooden is going to be the underdog in this fight. And when you look at it matchup-wise, I mean, I think Carlston Harris should get it done, even with the, like I said, the things outside of the fighting that I'm a little worried about, the age, the layoff, just getting knocked out, things like that. But Gooden, I don't think he has the style to really inhibit Harris. Harris is a guy that I think is going to struggle more with really proficient wrestlers that could take him down and hold him down, or good strikers that have good technical striking pressure and can break him down over time, because Harris is a little bit of weird style. I don't really think his striking is that elite, but what he does have is he has long arms, long reach, and he is fast. So he can kind of land these strange punches, and he has power, short range power with the right hand, and he's good in exchanges. He can catch you. And Gooden is one of these guys that hands down striker, kind of flashy striking, bounce in, bounce out, explosive, but he's hittable, has bad defense. He is durable, but he's taken a lot of punishment, and he's gotten knocked out twice now, I believe, in his career. He has good grappling, but he's not really a guy that's going to try to wrestle. So I believe this fight's probably going to be on the feet unless Harris goes for the takedowns, which that's the other wrinkle in Harris's game where I think he has another advantage, is I think he has decent level changes, pretty good wrestling offensively. His defensive wrestling to me is a little questionable, but I don't think he's going to have to worry about getting taken down in this matchup. And Harris has really good front chokes, so if he hurts Gooden and Gooden shoots in on him, he could submit him. He could knock Gooden out in an exchange. I think Gooden is a very hittable guy. Coming in here on this short notice, I think Harris is going to be able to probably get him out of there early. Harris was getting ready for a pretty tough opponent with Abubakar, so should have his striking on point to deal with someone that has a good jab and is going to be trying to catch him with the big shots. And I think that Harris is going to be able to kind of navigate inside, get good into exchange with him, land a punch, hurt him and knock him out, or hurt him and submit him. So for this first fight of the night, I got to go with Carlston Harris. I got to go with the guy that's at the full camp, the fighter that I think is a little bit better, a little bit more dangerous and composed in the cage. I think Gooden is good. He's a good fighter in terms of he's athletic, he's powerful, explosive, pretty good striking, proficient grappling, but I think that he makes a lot of mistakes. Defensively, he's not the best. And he comes in and takes a lot of short notice fights, a lot of tough fights, and I think that Harris is just going to be more prepared and get him out of there. So I'm going to go with Carlson Harris in this one. I'm going to say he wins via first round knockout. And this should be a fun fight, man. We got Tyson Nam, Bruno Silva. It's going to be in the flyweight division. And back in the day, one of the big things that people didn't like about flyweight is a lack of finishes. But man, I'm telling you, if you go and look at this year, if you would have bet on all the flyweight unders, all the flyweight fights don't go to decision, you would have racked out, because a lot of these fights are getting finished nowadays at the 125-pound weight class. And this is another fight that I think is going to get finished inside the distance. When you look at both these guys, how they fight, they're, I wouldn't say Nam is reckless, but I think Bruno Silva has kind of a reckless striking style. And both fighters have power. So I just see one guy getting knocked out. I mean, Tyson Nam, he's pretty, incredible fighter to be doing this at 39 years old. Even though he doesn't have necessarily a wide arsenal, when you think about Tyson Nam, all you're really thinking about is that big counter right hand. But that's all he needs. I mean, the guy's big for the weight class. He's fought at 135 pounds for a long time in his career. And he's durable. He is very composed. And he knows to just wait and bait his time and find that big right hand. And when he can land it clean, he usually can knock the guys out. I mean, he's been able to make a living with that his whole career, just knocking guys out with one punch. So it's not really much you could say about Tyson Nam outside of that. One thing about Nam is I haven't really seen many guys have a lot of success taking him down and holding him down. I haven't really seen anybody actually take down and hold down Nam. I went back and watched a few of his fights where I thought potentially his opponent would have tried for the takedowns at 125 and just didn't happen. I didn't see him really ever get held on his back. So that's something that's a little bit of a question mark to me. Obviously, I believe probably his grappling and something he's doing to maintain that distance is making fighters a little bit weary to level change on him. So I believe Nam is probably hard to get to the floor. And if this fight happens on the feet, I think Nam has a huge chance to win. Even though he's older and he's the underdog here, I definitely think that Bruno Silva is a guy that has he's improved his defense and he's gotten better with holding his hands high, but he drops his hands a lot and darts in, darts out with big punches and kicks, and he's definitely dangerous himself. He has power and he's improved with his boxing on the inside, but he's very hittable also when he tries to come in, and he'll run into punches, and usually he has the durability to get hurt and recover and come back and get the win. But we've seen him lose fights, get dropped multiple times in his fight against Khalid Taha before he got submitted. And if Tyson Nam could land a clean shot on Silva, he could put him out for sure. I mean, Silva, he's at the right place. He's training at Fight Ready MMA, who, man, I mean, if you think about the smaller guys that they've had over there in recent years, it's been pretty phenomenal. I mean, they've had guys like Cejudo, Davison Figueiredo was over there. They had, on the female side, I think Weili Zhang was there. They had Demetrius Johnson over there. So most of the champions in recent years at 125 in male and female they've had over there at that gym. And Silva's had the benefit of training with those type of guys. And you could definitely see the improvements. I mean, Silva's a dog. He has a great gas tank. When he gets hurt, he tends to be able to recover very quickly. He could wrestle. When he gets on top, he is pretty solid with his top positioning. And he has power in his hands and improved boxing, but it's just that hitability that gives Tyson Nam the opportunity to potentially get ahead in this fight. Not get ahead, but land that one shot and get the knockout. I think Silva could also land on Nam and hurt Nam too and knock Nam out. Nam has been knocked out 3-4 times in his career. Tends to get hit quite a bit himself, and I think if Silva puts a combination, a few shots together on Nam and can connect, I think it can hurt Nam as well. And Silva's not one of these guys that have beaten Nam by decision by being smart and point fighting. I don't see him doing that. I think Silva, when he fights, man, it's usually a car wreck, and that's what I think this is going to be. So it's going to be interesting. Another thing about this fight that I'm a little bit unsure about is why Silva had this long layoff. He hasn't fought in quite a while, and couldn't really figure out why he took time off. I did see online that he was still doing seminars and things like that, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's 100% healthy. At least he was staying in the MMA world and being active and honing his skills in another way. But I don't even know. Maybe he was 100% healthy and just wanted a break. I couldn't figure out why he took the time off. But hopefully he's coming in here and he's 100% sharp and ready to go. And he's not necessarily young for flyweight either at almost 33 years old. So even though he's 6 years younger than Nam, he's not one of the younger guys in the weight either, and he needs to get this win. So it's a pivotal win for both guys when you think about it. I think Nam, he's won 3 out of 4 fights, and he's on the cusp of getting another big-time fight if he can get the win here. Silva, 2 in a row. So they're both looking at a big fight if they can get the win. And I'm just going to go with the youth here, and I'm going to go with Bruno Silva. I'm going to say he wins via second round KO TKO, but this fight I could see going either way. I don't really know. Maybe Silva will go in there and take down Nam and just out-grapple him and show that Nam can't stop his wrestling, but I've never seen Nam have that issue in a fight, so it's hard for me to envision that here, and I think it's going to be more stand-up, but I'm still going to say Bruno Silva just is able to get inside, throw more volume, touch the chin, and hurt Nam and take him out, so going to go with Bruno Silva, but I think that Tyson Nam is definitely a live underdog. And we got another fight at the lower weight classes here. This one's at bantamweight, 135 pounds, with Tony Gravely taking on Victor Henry in a pretty high-level matchup outside of the top 15. Victor Henry took that loss in his last fight to Raphael. Assunscao, was a big favorite and ended up dropping the ball there after coming off a big win over Ariane Lipski as a big underdog in his debut. And that tends to happen quite a bit. If you look at it, you see a guy that debuts in the UFC, they come in, they get a big upset as an underdog, they get entrenched as a favorite in their next fight. A lot of the times they end up losing and dropping the ball and kind of regressing to where maybe the odds makers or the public saw them before the first fight. But hopefully Victor Henry is ready to go and tuned up for this one. He's a little bit older, almost 36 years old, so it's a pretty pivotal fight for him here. I think he has to get the win and avoid 2 losses in a row in the UFC. Tony Gravely is coming off that loss to Javid Basharat, but it was a competitive fight, and he's been doing well in the UFC. He has a good record overall, has kind of established himself as one of the best fighters outside the top 15 currently, I would say, maybe top 30, top 25. And if you want to make it to that top 15 echelon, you're probably going to have to get through a guy like Tony Gravely. So, really interesting fight, too, when you look at it style-wise. Victor Henry, he has that catch wrestling, so he will sometimes go for takedowns, but a lot of his recent fights he likes to strike, and then if fighters try to take him down, he will shoot up submissions off his back, try to create scrambles, and eventually try to end up on top and take guys out with the ground and pound or submission from top position. And his striking has improved quite a bit. I mean, he's gotten a lot more fluid. His footwork has gotten a lot better. He stands tall and can bounce in and out of range, throws a lot of nice kicks. I think his calf kicks are going to be something he works in this fight. In his last fight with Raphael Assunscao, I think that Raphael Assunscao's ability to switch stances so seamlessly and so often really threw off Henry. And also his ability to catch kicks kind of nullified a lot of Henry's striking offense. And in this fight, I don't know if Gravely's going to be as good as Rafa was on the feet that way. Especially, Rafa has a good ability to counterpunch too and just kind of slow the pace down of any fight. But Henry, he also in exchanges is solid. If you stick in the pocket with him, like we saw with Henry Barcelos, he's real good at kind of just slipping. And even if he gets hit with a punch, he can absorb it in return and come back with nice straight shots. And he has not a lot of power, but good accuracy, pop, and pretty good hand speed. And he can touch you and hurt you and overwhelm you with throwing a plethora, a huge volume of strikes. And if it stays on the feet, I definitely favor Henry. I think he'll just be able to overwhelm Gravely with the volume. I think Gravely early could connect with some big punches, have the speed advantage, but I think over time Henry will start to get the beat on it and start to be able to kind of chip away and take apart Gravely on the feet. And Gravely, when you look at Gravely's style, he's an explosive guy who in the stand-up is very fast, has a pretty good jab, good straight shots, long arms, and he likes to come forward, high guard, explode in, maybe land a 1-2, a big cross, and then try to close the distance and take you down against the cage or level change and take you down in the open mat. And he has good wrestling, some of the better wrestling at the weight class. And his top control is okay. It's getting better, and his ground and pound is getting better, but he's had submission defense issues. He's had top control issues, and I think Henry's going to be someone that's going to be tough to take down and is a submission threat as well. So Gravely may have to strike a lot more in this fight and show some good cardio to get multiple takedowns if he wins. And I think it could go either way. I mean, eventually Henry's going to start to get on that downslide and maybe Gravely could get past him with the speed on the feet and hitting a couple takedowns timely to win rounds. But I don't think he's going to be able to just hold Henry down and blanket him. I think Henry's a guy that's a trooper. He's going to be able to keep getting back up to his feet if he's taken down and try to push the pace and make it a hard fight for Gravely and try to submit him off his back too. So personally, I'm going to give Henry one more chance, say that he comes in here, has a good performance, and is able to outwork Gravely and win a decision or get a late submission. So I'm going to go with Victor Henry in this one, but another fight that's close on the money line. I think that could go either way, but I think Henry, if he shows up on point, he should be able to get the win. So give me Victor Henry. And we got the first women's matchup on the fight here with JJ Aldrich taking on Ariane Lipski. And this is a pretty good fight. I think the line's kind of way out of whack. Usually when I like betting on JJ Aldrich, she's the underdog. And if you've watched this channel, I've actually picked and bet on JJ Aldrich quite often because she's always usually in that dog spot. And I like what she brings. I know she's going to be a very consistent fighter. She's smart. She fights to a game plan. And she usually can beat a certain level of opposition. So that's why she's good to bet on as an underdog in certain spots. But when you see her as a big favorite, it gets a little risky because there is certain times where you see JJ Aldrich show some kind of lapses in her mental state. Like she'll kind of like lose a little bit of focus and get caught and get finished. Like her last fight, for instance, I mean, she was in there with a beast. She was in there with Merab Dvalishvili, someone that's the new hotness of the division. Everyone's talking about her potentially being a future champ and fighting for the belt right now. And especially with Valentina losing recently, you know, she's someone that a lot of people may see as being a favorite to be the champ by the end of the year. But JJ Aldrich, she was, you know, whooping up on Merab Dvalishvili for the better part of, 8 minutes before Dvalishvili was able to, make JJ Aldrich. I think JJ Aldrich slipped, and then she got caught in that front choke, and that was all she wrote. She got finished. So JJ Aldrich, she's sure a few things up, and, she could be in there with some of the better fighters in the world. And she's one of these girls that has quietly been training with Valentina, with Rose Namajunas. So she's seen what it's like to be the best of the best, that pressure. She's seen the skill level that you have to be to get there. So I think JJ Aldrich is someone that potentially could have another run in her career and finally get into the rankings. And I don't think she'll ever be champion or anything personally, but I think she can maybe get some good wins. But with Ariane Lipski, she came into the UFC with a lot of hype and hasn't really been able to live up to it. She has gotten some cool finishes where she's gotten some knockouts and she's been able to stick around in the UFC by getting some finishes like that. But most of the time when she's fought, she hasn't been able to get the job done. She's lost 3 of her last 4 fights. Her last fight, she went in there with Priscilla Cachoeira in kind of a fight that was right up her alley where it was going to be a banger fight. And Cachoeira won that fight, man. She knocked out Ariane in the first round. So Lipski has a lot to come back from. And I get why she's a decent underdog here. But I think that she is the value side personally, just because I don't trust JJ Aldrich at that number. But when you're looking at it skill-wise and as a pick, I mean, I think Aldrich is just way too advanced and smart for Lipski in terms of fighting style. Aldrich has that southpaw, slick style. She controls distance, very good ability to land the 1-2s and just stay real sharp and strike from range. And then when girls try to close the distance on her, she can clinch, she could take you down. She has good offensive wrestling, good top control, and she can grind out decisions, man. Her cardio is really good. She's durable. So the only issues with JJ is she can, like I said, have a few lapses in kind of judgment, get caught and get finished. And seems like when she gets hurt or when she faces adversity at certain times, she can go downhill really quickly. So if she can keep it her fight, though, and kind of keep it at her pace and her rhythm, mixing it up on the outside, getting a couple takedowns, it should be an easy win for her. When you look at Lipski, she is someone that likes to come forward backwards in straight lines, and she doesn't really do well with girls that have good movement like Aldrich. She also doesn't do well with girls that can mix it up and take her down, but she wants to get in there and bomb it out in the pocket. She has decent offensive grappling when she can get on top, and she has good ground and pound. She has power. She has decent kicks. I believe she probably has the superior kicking game, but I just think that Aldrich is way too good for her. I think she's too smart. I think she's going to be moving around. She's not going to let Lipski land those power shots. If Lipski gets over aggressive, she's going to take her down. And unless Lipski can just catch her and get her out of there, I don't see Aldrich losing. I think Aldrich takes a clear-cut decision here. So J.J. Aldrich is the pick for me. It's just, when you look at her at those odds, I wouldn't trust her, like throwing her in parlays and things like that, because it's just anything could happen. It's probably going to be a decision. You're going to have to rely on the judges, and if it's fairly close, maybe you get screwed. So it's a fight I'd probably stay away from, but I'm pretty confident J.J. Aldrich will get the job. And this next fight, this is a fun fight, man. I mean, this should be a fight where it's going to be finished inside the distance. Mario Bautista looking great recently in his last two performances. He's gotten first-round finishes over Brian Kelleher and Benito Lopez. And he's beaten everyone in the UFC outside of a loss to Corey Sandhagen in a fight where he got caught against Trevin Jones and knocked out. And Guido Canetti, he's been in the UFC for a long time at this point. He's 43 years old, but he's been able to stick around because, man, I mean, this guy, you got to give him some credit. I mean, being this old, he's extremely athletic, man. 43 years old, and he's still out there doing the damn thing. He's won 2 fights in a row, and every time Guido Canetti gets in there, it's a war. It's either he's going to finish you or you're going to finish him, or it's going to be a hell of a fight. And, you know, I respect guys that go in there and do it like that. The UFC does too. That's why he's been able to keep his job. And currently on a 2-fight win streak. He finished Randy Costa really quick in his last fight. But this is a different matchup. He's a huge underdog here, plus 600 underdog against Mario. And Mario's been looking really good recently. But you look at his last fight with Lopez, I think that kind of hard fight to really go in there and say, oh, Bautista's next level after a fight like that, just because Benito Lopez, he was coming off a really long layoff. I don't know how invested he was in fighting. He was doing real estate and some other jobs, and I feel like that is not a great victory to really indicate where he's at. And the win over Brian Kelleher, too, is really quick, and Kelleher is getting up there in age. But, yeah, man, I mean, when you look at Bautista, like when he fought Jay Perrin, that went to decision. So I think that Canetti's going to give him a little bit more issues than people believe. I think Canetti's not just going to get steamrolled or anything, but Canetti is one of these guys that in the first round is very, very explosive. He throws really nice heavy kicks. He can blitz in with big punches and has good speed, but as the fight goes on, he slows down a little bit, even though he's proven that he can maintain his gas tank a little bit better these days, like in the Mana Martinez fight. But I believe a lot of that has to do with Martinez not being as good of a grappler either, as physical. And I think Mario Bautista is going to put him in situations where he doesn't like to be. Bautista's really good in the clinch. Canetti tends to struggle a little bit in that clinch area. He gets hit with some big knees, big elbows, and I think that Bautista could damage him in the clinch. And Bautista has a really good top game. Canetti's been submitted several times, so definitely think if Bautista can get on top of him, he could potentially submit him. If this fight stays standing, I think Bautista is still probably superior, but Bautista is real hittable. He throws a lot of looping shots, hooks, and I think his best bet in this fight would be to get on the inside and kind of close that space where you can avoid Guido Canetti's big punches and kicks and get in that clinch, beat him up in the close range, eventually get him to the ground and try to submit him. Because one thing about Canetti, man, is he still has a great chin, and if you give him a chance on the outside to strike with him, he could catch you and hurt you. He hasn't gotten a finish with strikes outside of the fight with Moutinho, or as a standing TKO. I haven't seen him get like a knockout finish in a long time, but he definitely has the ability. And his last fight, he got that quicker naked choke, but I don't really see him being able to submit or get on top of Bautista. With this fight, I do think Bautista should be a pretty big favorite, but I think that, you know, the line, you can't really warrant a bet on Bautista with that line, but personally I think Bautista's probably going to be able to kind of do what I said. Get the distance, get inside, get in that clinch, try to beat up Canetti in that clinch area, get him tired, eventually get him to the ground and submit him. And I see him winning inside the distance. I think that it's probably a better bet to bet him by submission than bet him by anything else, because Canetti is really hard to TKO. He's super durable, and I don't really see Bautista minus 900 or minus 1,000 having too much value. So I would say Bautista by submission would be the play for that fight, but give me Mario Bautista to win via second round sub here. And this next fight here we got in the middleweight division was Cedric Dumas taking on Josh Fremd. And a lot of people are betting on Cedric Dumas this week. They bet him up to over minus 200, which I think is crazy. I think the line was right where it was. You know, I feel like both these guys are pretty unproven, but seems like everyone's on Dumas this week. But when you're looking at the fight, Dumas undefeated. He's coming off a win on the Contender Series last August. And, you know, his record is definitely suspect. I mean, he only fought one opponent before coming to the Contender Series, had more than one fight and a winning record. And That fighter was a 9-5 journeyman who had lost 5 of his last 8 fights before fighting Dumas, so wasn't really, a great record to look at. And on the contender series, he did take out a 6-1 pro fighter, but more of a kickboxing specialist, and that fight only lasted 47 seconds, so I don't really think we know much about Dumas. Dumas did have 10 amateur fights, and as an amateur, he did fight some better guys, but his one loss came against Miles Lee, who's a former CFFCC champion, 3-1 so far as a pro fighter, so not a bad loss to lose as an amateur, and he is going to be taking on Josh Fremd, though. He's definitely the most experienced and best pro fighter that he's ever fought. Fremd is a former LFA champion, trains out of a strong camp in Factory X, and he has his back against the wall here because he is 0-2 in his first 2 UFC fights. He fought a beast in his first UFC fight against Anthony Hernandez, and no shame in losing that one, but his subsequent loss to Tresean Gore was pretty bad. Gore's a low-level fighter. He was 3-2 entering that fight, and Fremd was winning the fight, but got caught in a guillotine in the second round, got submitted, and that loss put him in a do-or-die situation here. And Fremd took the hard road to make it to the UFC. He beat some good opponents, so he's going to be extremely hungry to keep his job and try to stick around. And hopefully mentality has his head on right and he can perform to his full capabilities. But when you're looking at the style from both guys, SD Dumas, he's a long striker, 6'2", 79-inch reach. And you could just see how incredibly helpful that length can be in any weight class, especially 185. I mean, you see the two guys at the top with Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya. They both have 80-inch reaches. Joseph Holmes is an 80-inch reach. And those are the only 3 guys, I believe, that have a longer reach than Dumas is. And on the feet, Dumas stands tall, throws a lot of kicks, fast, powerful kicks with both legs. He has real nice leg kicks, and he'll throw switch kicks to the head, nice front kicks, round kicks. He can go high with rear leg round kicks too, and he's finished multiple fights with different kicks. He's finished them with the liver kick. I've seen him finish them with the leg kicks, head kicks, and he has decent hands. Counter twos. He looks for the counter uppercut, counter check hook, and his length at speed give him a lot of advantage in exchanges. I do think if you can pressure him and throw punches, his chin does get high and you can connect and potentially get him out of there. And I don't think he's the most technical striker, but his reach and speed and just his kind of willingness to throw down make him really dangerous. And he is kind of unproven in the wrestling and grappling department. His wrestling looked weak against Miles Lee. He got taken down, held down for 3 rounds, but Miles Lee is a guy that tends to do that to everyone that he fights, and obviously he's no joke. And in Dumas' pro fight against Aaron Highball, which was his fight right before the contender series, he did hit a few takedowns, controlled on top, got to the mount, took the back, and his last fight he got a front choke submission, so probably is working on the grappling, but that's something that I really don't know about. I mean, Fremd is someone that wrestled in high school and has gotten some takedowns in his fights, and he could come in here and totally expose Dumas' grappling. We don't really know, but obviously I think Dumas is a guy that has shown good fight IQ. He was able to submit a striker in his last fight. I've seen him take down strikers that were dangerous and out-grapple him, like the Highball fight, and he looks like he has okay cardio, not the best. He doesn't really have a lot of experience in long fights, but he has potential because he's athletic, he's long, rangy, and he has that willingness to fight. He has that dog in him. So I definitely think Dumas is someone to keep an eye on. But Josh Fremd, his opponent, is also a big guy. He is going to have a 2-inch height advantage in this fight. He's 6'4", but he has pretty short arms relative to his height. He only has a 75.5-inch reach. On the feet, he likes to pressure, good jab, double, triple up on the jab, and try to move in for the crosses and overhands. Good rear kicks, nice front kicks, front knees up the middle. And he also has power. We've seen him knock guys out, and he does a good job using his striking to back guys up and getting the clinch. And his defense is striking at range, I think, is not up to par. I think Dumas could knock him out if they stay at range. I think Dumas is just a little slicker, a little faster for him to get knocked out against Gregory Rodriguez. And I would say that Dumas is more durable. So I think it'd be smart for him to throw a lot of jabs, leg kicks, try to get Dumas to overextend and then take him down or clinch him. And Fremd is going to look to wrestle and grapple in this fight, I believe at least. He has good timing on the body locks, good takedowns against the cage, and very good scrambling ability, strong cardio. He was able to scramble and win position, threaten submissions against Fluffy, who's a proven grappler. So I think if they get on the ground and get in some grappling transitions, I think that Fremd will prove to be superior. Fremd's defensive wrestling has not been great. Even in his last fight against Tresean Gore, he got taken down in the first round. He got his back taken. Second round, Gore submitted him with a guillotine. So, man, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about Fremd's defensive grappling. And cardio-wise, Fremd trains at elevation. He has a gas tank that's pretty good. And it's going to be a tough fight here for either guy. It's hard to really be confident, in my opinion. I don't know how people are so confident in betting Dumas when you just look at the type of fighters that he's fought. He hasn't faced really anybody. But I'm going to side with him here. I think he's the better striker, faster, more durable. I don't think Fremd's wrestling and grappling are that much better than Dumas's. And I think Dumas is going to be able to use his athleticism and his length to make it hard to get inside. Fremd may be nervous to shoot in on Dumas with him getting submitted with the guillotine and Dumas just getting a guillotine in his last fight. So I'm going to go with Dumas to win by knockout here. And I think if it goes late, Dumas could be in trouble because Fremd has the superior cardio. But I'm going to say Dumas wins. In this next fight, we got another bantamweight fight with Raphael Assunscao versus Davy Grant. And Raphael Assunscao, he showed a lot of people up late last year with his dominant performance. He looked great when he snapped his 4-fight winning streak, beat Victor Henry. And he's one of the best 135-pound fighters in MMA history. But at 40 years old, 4 straight losses, everyone was writing his obituary. And he was a big underdog in that fight. And he was able to go in there and get the win. And I don't know if he's just looking to have some more fun fights, get paid, or go on one last run. But this is a great all-action matchup. Originally, Assunscao was going to fight Kyler Phillips here, but Phillips pulled out. He's getting replaced by Davy Grant. Davy Grant's also an older guy, 37, but he's had a career resurgence of late. He won 3 fights in a row. Then he got a step up in competition, fought Marlon Chito Vera, fought Adrian Yanez in 2 very competitive fights, and lost both those fights. And then his last fight, he got Luis Smolka, and he knocked Smolka out in the 3rd round. So now the UFC's giving another step up, another stiff test, and Raphael Assunscao. It's a short notice fight for Davy Grant too. I don't think it's that short notice, but he didn't get a full training camp, and neither fighter's ranked here, but a win I think could definitely get the guy that gets the win ranked. And this is a really good fight. I mean, the way I think the fight's going to be going down, I think Davy Grant will lead the dance. Grant is dangerous, like his nickname says. He throws these casting hooks, overhands from the hip, nice kicks. He'll throw kicks to all parts of the body. He throws a lot of switch stance combinations, and technically and defensively, he's not good. He definitely can get touched up, especially with straight shots down the pipe. And Raphael Assunscao, great footwork, very composed, counterpuncher, shorter guy, and he's someone that switches stances very often and very seamlessly, and that seemed to give his last opponent a lot of trouble. But he likes to sit on the outside, feint, fake, mix in some leg kicks, and try to land those counter left hands, counter right hands. Traditionally, he has more power, and he is better from that southpaw stance, but he's sharp from both stances. And I think if he stays sharp, avoids getting clipped, he can get the better of the stand-up, land clean counters. It's just, can he keep up with the volume, and can he avoid getting touched on the chin, which he has been knocked out a couple times, and recently he's gotten hurt and finished with shots that I think that early in his career he would take easily. So that is definitely something that you have to be a little bit weary of. I think that the chin of Assunscao has gone a little bit, but when you look at Davy Grant too, he gets hurt and gets dropped in a lot of his fights, and I think that obviously he could get knocked out too by Assunscao, who has sharp counters and underrated power. But in terms of wrestling and grappling, I think that's Assunscao's world in this fight. He's a black belt, strong wrestling, strong clinch, good timing on his single. He uses that single to push guys to the cage. He could chain wrestle from there. He flows really well in that, going from takedown to takedown. He can break away when he knows he's not going to get the takedown and land sharp shots off the break. When he gets on top, he's a beast. I think that he's probably going to be able to control Davy Grant if he gets him down. And although Davy Grant has shown better takedown defense in this latter half of his career, still hasn't really shown great get-ups or great ability off of his back. And he needs to have a lot of emphasis in this fight, not throwing a lot of kicks, I feel, primarily boxing. And I just don't see the kicks being effective enough, and I don't think the risk is worth getting potentially taken down. I feel like Davy Grant, his chance to win is going to be to try to out-volume out and pressure and land big punches. Cardio-wise, both guys have great cardio, are super vets, And Assunscao, he's back in Vegas. He's training at Extreme. He's training at the UFC PI. He's getting a lot of heavy wrestling training going. He's training with the guy in Javid Basharad, who throws a lot of crazy kicks and can maybe mimic a little bit of what Davey Grant likes to do. And I think he's too smart to get sucked into a war. He was getting ready to fight Kyler Phillips, who's a very explosive striker. So I think that Assunscao stylistically is going to be on point to avoid a lot of crazy strikes and a lot of kicks and explosive actions and try to clinch and slow down the pace of the fight, which he always does do. So I think Assunscao by decision is going to be the pick for me in this fight. I think a KO is also a sneaky bet that could be profitable as well because Grant gets dropped a lot, and I think he's primed to eventually get knocked out with that reckless style of his. The only thing that I'm a little worried about is just hard to know. Assunscao summoned it up his last fight at, an older age and got the win. Is he going to be able to do that again, or was that kind of a last hurrah for him? But in this fight where he's facing another older guy on short notice, I think that his style matches up well, and he could use his counterpunching and his ability to get the takedowns and clinch against the fence control there to get the win over Davey Grant. So I think he's going to kind of slow Davey Grant down and get the victory by decision. And up next, we got a heavyweight fight between two newer heavyweights in the UFC. Lukasz Brzeski, one UFC fight, Karl Williams' debut here. And when you look at both these guys, they're on the smaller side for heavyweight, and they're both pretty skillful. Lukasz Brzeski is a volume striker. He has good speed, throws in combination, nice leg kicks, good jab, good straight cross to the body, to the head. And when he can back fighters up, he'll throw pretty good combinations. He can get a little bit loopy with his punches. He tends to slow down and get sloppy as fights go on. But early, he throws a lot out there, and he could be fast and pretty slick for a heavyweight. He doesn't possess a ton of power, and defensively, he carries his hands low. He's a hittable guy, but he could push a pace and throw a lot of strikes out there. I think the calf kicks are going to be the major weapon of Brzeski if he wins this fight. And he's pretty durable, but he can get hurt a little bit in certain fights, and we've seen him get taken out. But his wrestling and grappling are not really proven from what I've seen. He was able to hit a couple takedowns, get some top control against Dylan Potter, who's not really a heavyweight, not a great fighter anyways. And, Michael Keita was able to hit clinch takedowns on Brzeski and take the back, but Brzeski was able to stand up, and Pui was hard to take down, but Michael Keita also isn't a guy that's a heavyweight, and he's a lot older. And Brzeski has questionable cardio. He pushes through the fatigue and fights hard. He kind of reminds me of like a Josh Parisian type fighter, but a little bit lesser, I believe. But Karl Williams is a fascinating prospect. He is someone that's well conditioned. He's fast, athletic. He can wrestle, and those skills at heavyweight could take a fighter a long way. On the feet, Williams has fast hands, good boxing. He likes to come in with the counter crosses, the check hooks, and keeps it technical and tight. His skin game is decent. You'll throw leg kicks, front kicks, long reach, 79-inch reach. Defense isn't great. He does keep his head on center line. He is there to be hit. The issue for opponents is the speed and ability to level change, get it to the ground. For someone to beat Williams, I think with striking, they're going to have to be able to pressure, have good defense, and be able to defend takedowns. And Karl Williams can wrestle really well for a heavyweight. He has fast level changes, good chain wrestling, tends to finish takedowns pretty easily due to the timing, good control. He can grind it out, rides fighters out well, and finishing-wise, he's a big finisher. So far, his 2 losses, an amateur and 1 of a pro, have been via submission from fighters that have caught him with submissions when Williams was on top. So his submission defense has proven to be a little bit questionable as well, but most heavyweights don't possess that ability to submit from bottom, and Williams, he still needs to work and shore up that hole, and if he can, then I think he's going to be pretty tough to beat. He also has to get a little bit better with the striking defense, but I think he could become a better version of like a Jamal Pogues. There's still a question being answered with Williams, though, as I really haven't seen him in a fight where things haven't gone his way. All his victories and even in his losses, he's been implementing his game plan and dominating before getting finished or before getting the victory. And I don't know if his cardio is going to go by the wayside, if he gets clipped, or if he can't get a couple takedowns. In the UFC, all those questions will be answered, though, and we'll see how Williams could take it, how he can give it. He's been training with some elite heavyweights at Extreme Couture, and I just feel like it's going to come down to if Williams can do some clean work on the feet, hit some takedowns, and earn enough control to win, or if Brzeski can use his diverse striking and volume to overwhelm or decision Williams. And I'm going to pick the cleaner work, the superior wrestling and grappling of Williams. and I think Williams is the rightful favorite. So I just see him being able to go in here and get the victory, probably by decision. And this next fight, we got a light heavyweight fight between Vitor Petrini and Anton Turkalji. This is a fairly low-level fight, but it's a fight where I'm pretty confident that Turkalji is going to get the win. I think that him opening as the underdog was just wrong on the odds makers, and now the line has corrected itself where I think Turkalji is the slight favorite. But when you look at how both these guys fight, Vitor Petrini, he's one of these guys that you look at him and he fits the bill. He's super jacked, looks very like a very big, strong guy. And his striking is okay. He's very tough, comes forward, he tries to find that counter cross, and he has power in that big right hand. He'll throw big overhands. He has decent hand speed for a big guy, but walks forward very plotty. Defense is very bad. He tends to tire out, and I don't really know about his grappling. I've seen him defend a few takedowns, but I don't know overall how good his grappling is. So I feel like he's a bit of an incomplete fighter and a bit of a question mark in my opinion, but he's one of these guys that has power. He has decent ability in his hand speed and right cross, and anyone that has a right cross that could land, especially at these higher weight classes with less athletic, slower guys, they could take people out. But Petrini, a lot of his fights on the regional scene have been wars, and they've been tough fights, and he's gotten hurt himself, and I don't think he's really instilled a lot of confidence that he's going to come into the UFC and prove himself to be a future contender or anything. Anton Turkalji, he won on the Contender Series and then accepted a short notice fight at 215 pounds against Jailton Almeida, who's one of the best fighters, I believe, at 205 or heavyweight right now. Predictably, he got dominated, submitted in the first round. And now in this fight, I think he has a chance to show off his own grappling, and I think that would be the smartest thing to do. When you look at Turkalji on the feet, he is also a tall, long guy, and he's a little bit more diverse with the striking, and he'll throw a lot of kicks and spinning attacks, and he's moving around a lot, very wild, and has good footwork and athleticism on his own right. He's extremely hittable, though, and I feel like he needs to be smart in this fight and use his wrestling and grappling, where I think he has a big advantage. I think that if he can get into the clinch, he could get to the back of Petrini, mat return him, take him down, get him tired, control on top, and eventually finish him. I think Turkalji has a big advantage in the cardio department as well. So, personally, I think if Turkalji, if he fights smart, if he uses his striking to get inside, get the takedown, he can get Vitor tired and then finish him in the later rounds. So, personally, I think Turkalji is the more well-rounded, better fighter here. I think he's going to be bigger. He's going to have the better movement and footwork. He just has to avoid getting clipped as he tries to enter range or getting into a brawl and showing bad fight IQ and getting knocked out. But outside of that, I think Turkalji, as long as he grapples, is going to have an easy night here and be able to get the victory. And up next here, we have a really interesting fight here with Said Nurmagomedov taking on Jonathan Martinez. This should be a really fun striking fight. Two really good kickers. And this is the line that I think is a little bit off. I think you have to pay that Nurmagomedov tax here if you want to bet on Said. I would line it a little closer. I would give the slight edge to Said on the money line just because of durability issues for Martinez, and he's probably a little bit of a better grappler. But I think this is going to be a close fight if it stays on the feet. I mean, both guys kind of similar. They like to throw kicks from the outside, and I think that they both have real nice, slick striking. I think Said is going to be a little bit more durable and probably a little bit more powerful, but Martinez, very, very powerful kicker in his own right, very slick. We saw in his last fight, took apart Cub Swanson, finished him with the leg kicks, and it's not like Nurmagomedov, at least from what he's shown in his career, is going to go in this fight and change it up and out-grapple Jonathan Martinez. I think it's going to be a striking fight where it's going to be both guys trying to find their range with the kicks. The only issue with Martinez is he's gotten dropped in his loss to Andrei Sukhomtov multiple times. We've seen him get knocked out in other fights. His last loss to Davey Grant, he was winning the fight and then all of a sudden got clipped and got put out. So I think he's shown a little bit of durability issues, and Nurmagomedov has flashed big power. So if he can land clean on Martinez, maybe he could get him out of there. But I think if he can and it just stays a striking fight at range, I think it's going to be very competitive from both guys. I think both fighters are going to be landing. One thing about Said, you know he's going to be bringing out in all of his fights is those spinning attacks. So Martinez is going to have a great training partner, in my opinion, to get ready for that with someone in Chris Gutierrez, who's a really, really good elite spinner and very good kicker. And I I think he's going to be primed and tuned up. It's just going to be whether he can avoid maybe Saeed coming in with a game plan of striking at range with him and then getting a late takedown and winning that way, or maybe Saeed will try to submit him with that front choke that he's real deadly with. But if it stays striking, I think it could go either way. But I'm just going to side with Saeed Nurmagomedov because, like I said in the beginning of the breakdown, I think he has some advantages in the durability. I've never seen Saeed really get hurt and finish with strikes or dropped and wobbled in recent fights or anything like that. And I think that Saeed is probably the better grappler. So I'm going to side slightly with Saeed Nurmagomedov, but I think that on the line, I think that Jonathan Martinez is the fighter with the value, but I'm going to go with Saeed Nurmagomedov. I'll say he wins via decision. And with this next fight, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. I think it's a pretty easy victory for Ricardo Ramos. I think it's a good matchup here with Austin Lingo coming off a layoff. He's coming off some pretty bad injuries back-to-back, and he hasn't fought in quite a long time. And when you look at Lingo, I don't think since his injuries, I don't really expect him to come back with an improved skill set. And you look at his old skill set, he just has a lot of holes. He's a one-dimensional guy. He comes forward, he has nice boxing combinations, good power, but outside of the low kicks, he really doesn't throw much, and he also can get really beat up with kicks. He's just predominantly a boxer, stands heavy on that lead leg, and wants to get inside and throw combinations. He is durable, he has great cardio, and he's going to fight for your money, but his grappling is also questionable. He doesn't have the best wrestling. I've seen him taken on very easily. Get-up game is okay, but he does expose his back, and he's facing a wrestler and grappler that I believe is better than anyone that he's fought to date. Ricardo Ramos also is a fighter that is smart. He's not going to give Austin Lingo the fight he wants. He's going to be moving around on the outside, keeping that distance, and then trying to time the takedowns. I think he's going to look to get the backing and try to lock in that rear naked choke or just control for 3 rounds. With Ramos, you always have to be a little bit weary about it because he's been finished with strikes in a few of his fights, gotten clipped and finished, and got finished to the body. So Lingo with his power definitely has a puncher's chance in this one, but I just think Ramos is way too well-rounded. He's shown good cardio. He's shown ability to fight to a game plan. He's getting older now. Hopefully he can start to fight closer to his potential. And outside of Lingo just using his power and getting inside and being able to rip the body of Ramos and hurt him or land a big headshot and take him out, I don't really see him being able to get the win here. I just think that Ramos is too well-rounded. He's going to be able to keep the distance, not let Lingo get the fight he wants on the inside. If Lingo gets over-aggressive, you'll just take him down. And if he gets him on the ground, I think it's a big advantage. You could potentially submit Lingo. I feel like this is the best fighter that Lingo has ever fought, and it's definitely not the best fighter that Ramos has ever fought. So I'm going to go with Ricardo Ramos to get the victory. And this is another fight I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, just solely because I just broke it down a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to put down in the description that breakdown, so if you want to go listen to a more in-depth breakdown of this matchup, check out that video. But I'm sticking with my same prediction. I'm going with Ryan Spann by submission in the first round. Same premise of what I said last time. I think that Nikita Krylov's a guy that is very skilled. He does a good job of using his footwork and movement, nice kicks, and then he could hit some takedowns, good timing, good ability to set up his takedowns with his strikes, but he makes a lot of mistakes. I think that he's just going to show a lapse in judgment and fight IQ. I think he's either going to get clipped and then shoot in a bad takedown and get submitted, or I think he's just going to try to wrestle, and Spann's going to catch that front choke, which he just has a patented front choke. It's really elite, and I think Spann is just coming to his own with the striking. I think that he's one of the bigger guys in the weight, and this fight being at 215 pounds is only going to help him even more. Krylov had to pull out of the first fight, so that makes me wonder, if he's 100% here. Hopefully he is, and it was just a illness that went away relatively quickly, but who knows. And I just think Ryan Spann is just going to be too big, too athletic for him on the feet. I think he's going to overwhelm him and make Krylov want to wrestle, and I think when he does that, he's going to be able to catch a front choke and submit him. So, like I said at the beginning of the breakdown, if you want to listen to a more in-depth breakdown where I really broke down the style a little bit more and the diversities with these guys, how they could win, then check out that video that I'm going to put in the description. But I'm going to go with Ryan Spann by first round submission. I think that even this fight being 3 rounds helps Spann as well, and like I said, being at 215. So everything that happened with the switch in this fight, I think also favors Spann. I think that cardio-wise, Krylov had the advantage, but now if it gets out the first round, Spann only has to win 1 of the last 2 to get the victory and survive 2 rounds, not 4 rounds. So I'm going to go with Ryan Spann to win here via first round submission, though. And in the co-main event here, we got a heavyweight fight between Alexandr Drago Volkov taking on Alexander King Kong Romanov. big contrast of styles here with Alexander Volkov. You know what he wants to do. He's 6'7", 80-inch reach, and he likes to keep it on the feet, pressure you, throw those 1-2s, front kicks up the middle, make your life miserable with a lot of volume, and eventually take you out. And one thing that I do like a lot about Volkov is he's shown some improvements, man, and he's really gone and transformed his body. You saw his fight before his Curtis Blades fight. He was 245 pounds, and he wasn't a small heavyweight by any means, being 6'7", but he didn't have that girth in his legs and that lower base that he has now. Now he's 265, looks huge, and it showed a lot of dividends in his fight with his fight with Marcin Tybura. He was able to defend quite a few takedowns. The fight never went to the ground in that one. And, yeah, man, I mean, now it's going to be an even bigger test with Romanov, who's a more explosive wrestler, trying to take him down to see if he could truly defend takedowns against an elite guy and be able to get his striking off and get the victory. So it's a really good matchup for Volkov to see if he can continue through the rest of the weight class and eventually get to a title shot. And for Romanov, it's a chance to bounce back and beat a guy that's high in the rankings and stay relevant. Because if you look at Romanov's last fight, first time he kind of jumped into that upper echelon of the top 10, took on Marcin Tybura, who's kind of a journeyman, kind of a guy that's been, he's not a journeyman, but he's someone that kind of gatekeeps the top 10, and Romanov couldn't get past him. I mean, he had a dominant first round where he took down Tybura, arguably got a 10-8 with a lot of ground and pound, just not a lot of damage, and the judges didn't see enough damage to warrant the 10-8, so it was a 10-9, and Tybura took over the second and the third. We saw Romanov get tired, just like we saw him get tired in the Juan Espino fight, and he couldn't keep up that pace, and he got his first loss. And it seems like now we have seen two different fights where guys have been able to show some adversity to Romanov, and he slows down, gets tired, and kind of looks for the way out. And we've seen, in my opinion, some bad signs where if you watch his last fight with Tybura, he faked that nut shot where he got hit to the stomach, and he was acting like it was a nut shot, and then they restarted the fight real quick once they saw it on replay. We saw his fight with the wrestler Espino, where he got out of there off the nut shot that didn't really look like it was a big shot. So I kind of question Romanov once he starts to get tired, if he really has that will to stay in there and battle through. And I know that Volkov's been in 5-round fights. Volkov has elite cardio, and that could be a huge factor in this fight, because when you look at Romanov, the guy's a beast with his wrestling, especially early. He could throw guys, head over tea kettle, and is extremely strong in the clinch. He gets takedowns against the cage with ease, and I think he probably will be able to get Volkov down in that first round, control him, and beat him up, and that's going to be his best chance to win, man. He needs to go for it, go for the submission in that first round, go for the finish with the ground and pound, because he just hasn't proven that he could keep up the pace for 3 rounds, and it's hard for me to think that he could do it against Volkov, a guy that is going to be giving him a lot of issues with the strike on the outside. Those front kicks to the body are going to be there. He's going to be smart. He's going to be a lot tougher to take down, I believe, than he was in previous fights, and I just don't think Romanov has what it takes to strike with him on the feet. That Romanov has never fought someone this tall, this long, this technical with the striking, and it's going to be a big difference from what he normally faces. Romanov is an explosive guy, so early in the fight, maybe he could close that gap and get a big shot, hurt Volkov, but I think more than likely Volkov is going to dominate and control the pace with that striking, attack the body, stay long, back Romanov up, and if Romanov can't get the takedown, he's going to be in a world of hurt. And Romanov, if he can't get the finish in the first round, maybe he learned something from that Tybura fight, and he's going to be able to pace himself better and be able to go 2-3 rounds at a pace and eventually either get the finish in the later rounds or a decision win. But he's never proven that, and one thing that Volkov has proven is he's hard to finish. He's hard to hold down. He did get finished by Tom Aspinall, but I don't think Romanov is on that level with jiu-jitsu. Aspinall's a black belt. Romanov tends to muscle a lot of submissions and break a lot of guys that are lower level with ground and pound and 2, 3, 4 mat returns, whereas I don't think that's going to happen with Volkov. We saw Volkov go 5 rounds with Curtis Blades and have the most success he had in the fight in the later rounds. And I think Volkov's going to be able to get Romanov tired and finish him. I think this is one of these fights, maybe not finish him, but win him by decision at bare minimum. And I think it's one of these fights where it's a good live betting opportunity, because I think Romanov potentially could dominate that first round. Volkov could come back second and third, get the win just like Tybura did. And it's another fight where I think that the draw is a decent bet in this fight, because honestly, Romanov could get a 10-8, and then Volkov could get two 10-9s, and it could be a 28-28 draw. So this fight, I think, if you think that Romanov's going to be able to come in with an improved gas tank, then he could win this fight rather easily just by hitting some takedowns, controlling. But I think that Volkov has proven that he's made some pretty good adjustments in terms of his size. He's gotten better with his takedown defense. And I don't think he's just going to be someone that just gets thrown to his back and held down at ease like he did in the Blades fight again. And I see him having a huge experience gap, and I see him having a huge striking edge, so along with the cardio as well. So I just got to go with Volkov here, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight via third-round finish or decision. And the main event here, we got one of the best fights 135 pounds can offer here with Petr Yan taking on Merab Dvalishvili. And this is a bit of a grudge match here. I mean, Petr Yan, he had the two fights with Aljamain Sterling, and during that build-up, they obviously had beef, and that kind of spread over to Aljamain's team, and one of Aljamain's teammates and one of his best friends is Merab Dvalishvili, and Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan have had several run-ins, incidents, and there's been a lot of trash talk coming in here, more from the Merab side, where Merab seems to be taking this fight really personal, and man, it's going to be a really fun fight. I mean, when you look at both these guys, action fighters, Merab is kind of a style, I wouldn't say a boring style, but his style isn't really the most fan-pleasing, but he does put a lot of offense out there. And Petr Yan, we all know how he fights, one of the best boxers in the UFC, no mercy, goes in there to kill. And man, I mean, when I see how this fight's going to play out, it's going to be interesting to see how Petr Yan looks just mentally, and if he's going to be 100% in there, because he has lost 3 out of 4. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's had 2 fights that he probably felt that he won, that he lost on the scorecards in very close decisions. So is he going to press? Is he going to be more offensive in this fight? Because that's been one of the main gripes and one of the main problems with Petr Yan's style throughout his career, is he's a very slow starter. He could sometimes give away the first round, the second round, and it's hard to come back from that in certain fights. And with Merab, Merab is going to be letting a lot of volume off, trying to stay in Petr's face, trying to get takedowns and being really active. So if Petr Yan doesn't have that activity to match Merab and doesn't land a big shot, Merab is going to get ahead on the scorecards, especially early. And Yan, I think, has to see that from his last 2 fights, man. Even though his last fight he did lose in the 3rd round, he has to know that he has to start out fast here. He lost the first round to Sean O'Malley. He's lost the first round in a lot of his UFC fights. And I think one of the main objectives I would have for Petr Yan in this fight, just outside of winning, is to win the first round. Try to go out there, try to really emphasize a fast start, and try to win that first round and try to dictate that you're going to be the one dominating this fight. But, this fight's pretty prototypical. I mean, the way you see it going down. I think Merab's definitely improved his striking, and he's hard to read because the guy's always throwing some really crazy kicks, spinning attacks, and he's always feigning the level change up, down, so he's kind of tricky, and he can land these big overhands, big punches. He's throwing everything into his strikes, and he has some power, so Merab is hard to deal with on the feet, and because of that, and you always have to be kind of weary of the takedown, so it kind of stymies some guys. But overall, I think Petr Yan is much more technical. He has the southpaw boxing style. He could switch stance. He has excellent combinations, super tight punching. He has really, really, really good power. We saw him almost knock out Sean O'Malley. He landed some really, really nasty shots in that fight. And he has great pressure, cardio, pushes the pace, gets better as fights goes on. Pretty good kicking game. And overall, if this fight stays standing, I think that Petr Yan will start to get the read on Merab wants to do and start to really beat him up. And I think that Petr has to pressure in this fight, has to be aggressive, and has to be the one that goes first. Because if he lets Merab dictate, it's going to be really hard to know what Merab's going to do. Is he going to come over the top with a big punch? Is he going to throw a spinning attack? Is he going to level change and try to take me down? So go first, try to get Merab on the back foot, and try to dictate the fight yourself, I feel is going to be the best thing for Petr Yan. And Merab, outside of that striking, I mean, obviously what his main game plan is going to be is trying to get the takedown. And I think one of the things that he's going to try to do is maybe not get the back and get those hooks in like Aljamain Sterling, because he doesn't have that length, and that's just not the type of guy that he is on the ground. He's historically not shown the best top control, but maybe try to get to the back and get to that ride position and try to hit some mat returns, control Petr Yan against the cage, try to drain his gas tank and beat him that way. A lot of cage control, maybe some takedowns, some top control. I don't really see him coming out here and showing an improved top game and being able to hit a submission or control Petr Yan for long periods of the fight. I think it's going to be more of the traditional up-down style that Merab does bring, and this is going to be his first 5-round fight, but we all know the machine's cardio and pace, and I don't see him getting tired. I don't see Petr Yan getting tired, so this fight really just comes down to if you think Petr Yan is going to be able to not get down on the scorecards early, because I think if he loses the first 2 rounds, it's going to be very easy for Merab to steal one of the last 3 and steal another close decision and have Petr Yan and Petr Yan fans mad all over the world once again. And is he going to be able to stuff the takedowns or stop the cage control enough and land the damaging shots on the feet that win him the rounds and win him the fight definitively, or is he going to be able to get the finish laid? So there's a lot of question marks and there's a lot of things. I mean, we've seen Merab in the fight with Aldo go in there and dictate the striking, control against the clinch, take virtually no damage, but we have seen him get dropped, get hurt against Marlon Moraes, and so he can be caught, he can be hurt, and Petr Yan has that power to take him out. So I'm going to go with Yan. I just think that he has the higher level experience. I think he could stuff the takedowns, keep it on the feet, pressure, and beat up Merab. But it's something about Merab, man. I mean, Merab is a guy that I think is really strong mentally. I think he's a guy that in this fight, he's taking it personal, like he said. He's going to be extremely tough, extremely hard to get out of there. I think he's going to try to fight extremely hard. And at the current odds, I think that Merab is the value side. I don't trust Petr Yan at this number. He kind of burned me a few times, but I do think it's a good matchup for him. I think he has a big advantage in the stand-up, and if he could stop the takedowns, he has huge experience edge on the feet, and I think he could do damage and take over in the later rounds if he can keep it standing more often than not. But if Merab can implement his game plan, it's going to be tough for Petr Yan to get going with the striking. So this is going to be a fun fight. It's going to really dictate who's going to be, the next guy coming up for the title once again. If Petr Yan loses 3 in a row, he's going to be in a bad spot. It's kind of a must-win for him. But if Merab wins, I think he's going to get the title shot personally. So yeah, that's kind of what I think is going to happen in this fight. I think that Petr Yan is going to be able to pressure, dictate the pace a little bit more than Merab, stuff Merab's takedowns, and get the better of it on the feet. So I am leaning slightly towards him. I think as the fight goes on and he puts damage on Merab, Merab might try to make it more of a striking fight, and that could be to the advantage of Petr Yan as well. So I'm going to slightly give it to Petr Yan in that main event and say that he snaps that 2-fight losing streak and gets the victory. So there you have it, guys. That's the full card breakdown and predictions video for UFC Vegas 71, Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. If you enjoyed it, if you thought you learned something, hit that like button. Let's try to get 150 likes like I said in the beginning of the video. Really hope we can get there for this one. Put a comment down below. Tell me what you think about my predictions. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who are you betting on? Everything like that. I would be curious to know. And outside of that, for my most confident pick on this card, I'm going to go with Ricardo Ramos. And for the parlay of the week, I'm going to go with Carlson Harris and Ricardo Ramos. So there you have it, guys. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Like I said at the beginning of the video, too, if you want to get access to all my bets for this card, bets for the PFL Challenger Series, bets for LFA 154 for Bellator 292, which is a pretty big card for Aries FC 13. Then go to patreon.com/MMA Prediction Guru. You can get all that there. Get access to some of the best betting tips in the world and make some money for yourself. So besides that, guys, I'll be back next week. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed, and talk to you guys later.